complainant and the lead applicant to the South African Human Rights Commission. Advocate, it's great to have you with us on the program. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. And how wide-ranging is this challenge of just the increasing number of arrests for particular groups of people when it comes to cannabis use?
Good afternoon, Michelle, and good afternoon to all of your listeners and viewers. The situation is dire, to say the least. You know, after the death penalty was abolished in our country, arrest and detention is the most severe sanction that the state has, or that the state can exercise against any citizen. And our law says that this should only be used for serious crime. And since 18th of September 2018, the Constitutional Court declared that the usage, possession, and cultivation of cannabis is no longer a criminal offense. And therefore, the usage of arrest in relation to cannabis is akin to using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. And we are saying that the use of arrest by the police in relation to cannabis offenses is not justified, it is unlawful, and it's unconstitutional, and it needs to stop. For the past 6 years, we have sought to interact with government to make them understand that this is not the problem that they think it is. The Western Cape High Court declared that the laws against cannabis are racist in origin. And now that it's been declared unconstitutional, the past cannabis laws, the police cannot still make use of the same mentality that informed them during apartheid time, and that mentality which has been informing them for the past 100 years. The attitude of the police for the past 6 years have not changed towards the cannabis community, and we are still experiencing harassment. For us, apartheid has not stopped. There has been no justice for the cannabis community, and that is what forced us to complain to the South African Human Rights Commission, because our community is a marginalized and vulnerable one, and we have difficulty in accessing our courts.
Advocate Prince, would you say that this is more a case of malicious intent on the part of police, or a real lack of education in terms of being up to speed with what the latest laws are in our country?
It's a bit of both. The culture amongst the police is what needs to change. The Judge Inspector for Prisons, Justice Edwin Cameron, declared in his 2019 report that there is a culture of incarceration amongst the police. Under apartheid, South Africa was a police state which placed immense power in the hands of the police. A constitutional democracy is the very opposite of a police state, but our police still continue to act and behave in the same manner as they did under apartheid when it comes to the issue of cannabis. And that shows malicious intent on the part of the police, because they are well aware of the fact that the Constitutional Court declared the laws against the use, possession, and cultivation of cannabis to be unlawful and to be unconstitutional. That, in effect, meant that a significant change. The law specifically states that the police are only entitled to arrest somebody if they have objective proof of the fact that that person is dealing. But what we are experiencing is that the police are arresting people still for simple possession of cannabis. And you find that people with 10 grams, 20 grams, 200 grams still get arrested by the police. And we've noted that they tend to arrest people, keep them for 48 hours, and then they just release them when they are supposed to go to court. So people don't appear in front of a magistrate, they are just let go. But then the cannabis that the police took from them is not given back to them, which is the law as it stands in terms of Section 31 of our Criminal Procedure Act. But we see a deliberate misinterpretation of the law and misapplication of the law by SAPS, who refuses to give respect and regard for the Constitutional Court, Judge.
Advocate Prince, the Cannabis for Private Purposes Act I understand the Human Rights Commission has written to the Department of Justice so that regulations for the Act can be done in consultation with Rastafari and other cannabis-using communities. Why has that Act not come into law as yet? Or it's come into law in June. Why has it not come into effect as yet?
That's a very good question, Michelle, especially bearing in mind that there is a severe crisis in relation to how that particular law should be interpreted. The cannabis community was not satisfied with the Cannabis for Private Purposes Act because just as there are supposed to be consultations around the regulations, there were supposed to be consultations around the development as well as the conceptualization of the Cannabis for Private Purposes Act, which did not take place. Now, it took our Parliament 6 years to complete a law, and after that 6 years, they ended up giving us a law that does not even fulfill the basic mandate given to them by the Constitutional Court, which was to ensure that members of the cannabis community have the ability to exercise their right to use, possess, and cultivate cannabis. However, without a legal source of cannabis, our rights cannot be manifested. And if somebody in the cannabis community wants to exercise his or her right to cultivate cannabis or to use or possess cannabis, then they have to break the law. And it does not lie in the mouth of government to expect of its citizens to break the law in order to exercise a right. Our law very clearly states that ours is not just a representative democracy. Ours is also a participatory democracy. And there cannot be any laws, policies, or regulations made without the input of the affected community. And government dismally failed us in relation to adequate public participation or meaningful public consultation. And these, obviously, it puts in jeopardy the legality or the constitutionality of the Act. And despite not giving any relief to the cannabis community, the government, especially the police, have continued to arrest members of the cannabis community. If we look at the quarterly crime stats, you will see that there has not been a significant decline in the number of people arrested, whereas the majority of arrests for cannabis are still possession related, which is clearly against the law, because they are only entitled to arrest if there is a reasonable prospect of dealing.
Advocate Gareth Prince, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. It's an important issue and one that the South African Human Rights Commission now also has its eyes on.